Oh, welcome to the Sharpe Club. So happy to have you with me this evening. A little bit past 9 p.m. on the East Coast. Yes, it's late, but it's Monday, so I get to stay up late on Monday, even though I know I'm old. But old people get to stay up a little bit once in a while. So Monday is my day that I've chosen to stay up late, and I have an interesting topic this evening for you. And if you don't like it, you're just not that bright, but that's okay. You can still watch anyway. I don't mind. And IQ is not required to watch this show, but it is a good one. I'm telling you. It's about the idea of what works when you want to resist. When you want to resist, the culture, when you want to resist the government, when you want to resist people around you, what's actually working? And I brought tonight a star-studded panel. Activist herself, Nikki Moonitz. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I love that. Absolutely. I'm glad you're enjoying it. And a former candidate who is still rocking and rolling, even though he got a little bit beat up. He doesn't care. He won't stop. The man himself, Michael Oxford. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Larry.
There we go. And our returning champion from down under. She has returned, the 2A activist, the one and also former candidate, punished herself also, the one and only Kate Fantinel. How are you?
Good morning from Western Australia. How are we?
There we go. We are all here today. I appreciate it. So the question I have, and by the way, if you want to follow these people, you can. Please do so. You can follow Nikki at N Moonitz on Twitter. You can follow Kate at Lady Liberty AUS. You can follow Michael at SC Mountain Goat, all on Twitter, or also X, either one. So let me ask you all of you have in some way, shape, or form tried to be pressured or attacked or pushed in some way, shape, or form, and you've resisted. What's worked? What hasn't? Don't all jump at once.
Well, I want to let the ladies go first.
Okay, there we go. Kate, give me some guts. Tell me something. What's working? I know you ran for office. Did that work?
That woke up a lot of people, and I was very effective in having the conversation in Australia move towards firearms. So in Australia, we're in the unfortunate position where we don't have a Second Amendment or many rights at all. We don't even have freedom of speech enshrined in our constitution. We don't have freedom of travel, which we saw during the lockdowns. I couldn't leave my state of Western Australia for over 2.5 years because the border was closed to the rest of Australia, my own country. So it's about having the conversation and getting the conversation started, but also controlling the language. So I've noticed that there's a lot of push from the left to change the definition of words, like even misinformation and disinformation. Those words have been changed. Racism in Australia, we've just had an incident where one of our female soccer stars abused a UK cop and called him a silly white bastard. Now, that was deemed by the press and the narrative here to not be racist because it was used against a white person who, in their minds, had not been oppressed before, which is obviously just insane. There is historical evidence of oppression of white people. Look at South Africa with the farmers. So I've seen in Australia particularly that when we are trying to win the fight, it all starts with language. They're controlling the narrative through changing definitions. I know that might be a bit heavy to say for me.
No. You gave me some good stuff here, Kate. You gave me two things which I love, which one of them you said that you running for office actually helped. And I always worry that it doesn't, right? I always worry that you run for office, you bust your rump, you sacrifice, and nobody cares. But you have just made me feel better, right? That if you run, that somebody will actually notice, that people will have conversations. I love that piece. But the second piece then is, are you saying then that we should not use their words, or that we should use, like, how do you, if they're going to control the narrative and control the words, should we not, or should we?
Well, I use them back at them. So my body, my choice, perfect example with the vaccine. So I've used that in conversation with more left-leaning people in terms of the abortion debate. Why do you think it's okay for you to decide on that matter, but when it comes to an experimental injection that wasn't effective what they said it would be, why do you think it should have been forced on me? Because if we're all about voluntary association and having freedom of choice, then my body, my choice can apply in that situation too. And it's the same thing with when it comes to medicinal cannabis or bodily autonomy. You can't be pro bodily autonomy and be anti decriminalization of cannabis, in my mind. So I try and put it back on them. Like, if you're going to be principled in one area, but then completely hypocritical in another, put it back on them and have the conversation. You have to have it respectfully as well.
It's funny you bring that up. I've done that when it comes to, believe it or not, gun control. Right? If I come to, and you perfectly said, in America, we have a Second Amendment. In Australia, you don't. So a lot of people who care about the Second Amendment, I see Michael has guns in his background. He probably cares a little bit about it. So, right, if you care about it, right, what many people will say is, well, you have to respect the Second Amendment, and they will fight on that. The problem is there are a lot of people in America who think the Second Amendment's old or stupid or doesn't matter or who cares. So what I will often say is that it's racist. I'll say that every time you put out gun laws in America, what you're doing is putting young black men in jail faster.
Thanks, Reagan.
And they, yes. And they go, what? Wait, no. I can't be racist. Well, what you're saying kind of is. And I think it does, to your point, Kate, it brings the conversation to a different level. I agree. Michael, go ahead. I know you're talking about second. Go ahead, please.
Man, you said so many things I want to talk about there. The language they use and the redefining of terms is a huge one. And yes, I believe don't use their language. Like, one big word that they redefined was vaccine in September of 2021.
Okay.
And I refuse to call the COVID shot a vaccine because it's not. And, that's one of them. But the whole what works in terms of standing up, I mean, you kind of got to define what do you mean by works? Is
Good
there
point. Yes. Good point.
So if everybody tried to stand up and fight the good fight, if you will, it's going to hurt. You're going to run into some opposition, and you may not even come out on top. Look at a lot of the January 6 people that got thrown in solitary confinement. I'm sure there's plenty of January 6 people that had serious consequences on their mental health, their physical health, or and a lot of people that didn't even want to be in the limelight or anything have been just persecuted by the
what about the people here, particularly in New York State, but I know in other states, where they were medical personnel who didn't want to get the jab and lost their jobs. Their careers were ended. Like, their careers are over. They spent X number of years getting into that field, in the medical field, doing whatever it takes to get into the medical field, right? It's always years of knowledge to get into medical field, whatever it is, right? So they spend all that time, money, and energy to get into the field. Then they have experience, years of experience in the field, whatever it is. And now it's gone. And New York, we're like, we've got a shortage of medical personnel. You fired like 30,000 of them, of course, right? Of course. You got rid of them. And now people are scared to get back in the field in New York State. So and even that, Michael, you'll lose your job, your livelihood.
Well, I did. And I mean, tons of people.
Oh, you did? Okay, go ahead. Tell us.
Well, I didn't do it I thought I was going to lose my job for refusing to take the shot. And then we got all past that. And then I got fired for refusing to wear a mask in 2023, So it was like,
oh my God.
Yeah. And was it worth it? I mean, yeah, it was worth it, but it's not that it didn't come without consequences. That's for sure. My life is definitely not easier. It's more exciting. I feel like I'm doing the right thing. But there's definitely consequences. So I don't know, Nikki,
go ahead. Tell me what you've been through here.
Well, I kind of lucked out as far as the shots go and the masks, because we all were forced to work remote when the lockdown started. And luckily my employer was a conservative who didn't want to do the shots, because we would have fallen under the mandates and I would have lost my job, because there's no way I'm injecting that into my body. But the Supreme Court shut that down, so I looked out on that. As far as resisting, I refused to go anywhere where I had to wear a mask. The only time I wore a mask was when we flew to Mexico, because I wanted to go to Mexico. But I wouldn't go
I
into
don't blame you on that
any
one, Nikki. I'm
stores
okay
that
with that.
required a mask, or yeah, I wasn't going to not travel, but I would just be the sole grocery shopper not wearing a mask. When I got my nails done, I would not wear a mask. I just wouldn't do it. And as far as the language goes, I totally agree. And what I do is I force them to define their terms in any conversation. I force them to define their terms, and I refuse to budge on what the truth is, because that's what they try to do. They're weaponizing your compassion. They're trying to get you to go along with their. Well, first off, we're supposed to, all feel guilty because we're Americans and we're colonizers and we're oppressors, and I refuse to go along with that, and I refuse to go along with their little lies, which I mean, we're surrounded by
But
it.
let me go back to what Michael said, right? You do that. Don't you risk things like, all right, now you're going to lose friends, or now you're not going to talk to people. People lose family members over this, right? No, you don't want the job. Now you can't come to my Thanksgiving or whatever, right? We lose family, we lose friends, or you could in theory, not be able to do things, or people call you names, or all those things. I mean, this isn't
Yep.
free, to Michael's point.
I don't care. First off, I
Okay.
lost my family when I left the left. I mean, a bunch of my family just like freaked out because I come from a big far left family, and I lost quite a bit of family and friends, and I don't care, because I care more about what I think of me than what anybody else thinks of me, and I'm always going to do what I think is right. I'm not going to let other people do my thinking for me, and I'm not going to let them emotionally blackmail me. So I don't care. I say la vie, or good riddance,
Say la
whatever.
vie.
If you would leave me
Okay.
for that, you're not my friend.
Oh,
So
I like how you think, though. So let me go back to you, Kate, if I could. Do you think that the resistance in Australia, and there was some, I know, did they learn a lesson? Did the government learn anything? Did it work? Did the resistance happen? Was there a now? Do you think if it happens again, the Australian government will change, or the outcome will be the same?
It's a tough one because, like I said, we don't have the two-way in Australia, and I really feel that's a big thing. So in my state of WA at the moment, they're introducing even tougher gun laws than what we've got at the moment. So a limit on the number of firearms you can own. You can only own up to 5. They're going to make it harder for people to get a firearms license, move the goalposts on us. So I feel without those key individual freedoms that you guys have enshrined in a constitution, a lot of it, like the system is against us in Australia. We don't have that. Like, we are a liberal democracy, but we're not operating like one. It's more like a oligarchy. It's all the money stays at the top, and the government controls so much. We are one of the highest tax nations in the world. We are not living this free life that we used to. So I feel like governments have been very effective in changing our culture, and firearms is a perfect example of that, because Australians have been taught to fear guns and to look at it. Only farmers, for example, should have firearms, and that's against my culture. I'm Italian Irish by background. We were talking about St. Paddy's Day before, and for me, firearms is part of my culture growing up, with an Italian father that taught me how to hunt. Now the government is trying to change our culture so that Australians don't see hunting as an integral part of who we are, which is false. We were colonized by the British, and we brought across those hunting skills. Like, the UK have a very rich hunting tradition. We have that in Australia too. So it's about holding the line. It's about using their language against them. And it's about fighting the issue on principles, because it's with principles, and liberty is always the answer. Always the answer, every time, to every problem. It's always
I got to say something to you here in this one. In New York State, in theory, we have the Second Amendment, but I would say they turn it into the second suggestion, because we have gun laws too, and lots of them, and worse than yours sometimes, right? So in this case, this is what actually happened. My awesome, amazing governor, Her Majesty Queen Kathy, first of her name, she actually decided that she was going to pass some gun laws, and the Supreme Court said, no, those are unconstitutional. She went, okay, here's 10 more. I'm not joking. She literally passed 10 more gun laws after the Supreme Court said these first ones she passed were not good, were unconstitutional. She didn't care. And New York State, to your point, Kate, has changed. New York people are afraid of guns. We I'm sorry, unless the government has guns, those guns are fine, right? The government guns are wonderful, but your guns, those are bad. I remember I was in Oklahoma, which is much more of an open gun state compared to New York. And I was at a fundraiser, and a bunch of people in the same house, in someone's house, and many people carrying, a lot of open carrying too. So someone takes a picture of me with a bunch of people there, and there's obviously some guns there. So my friends in New York see the picture and go, "Oh my God, is that a gun?" I went, "Yeah." They went, "Weren't you afraid?" I said, "Why?" Literally, it's the safest place I could possibly be. I'm surrounded by friends who are armed. This is the best place in the world. Like, if someone comes in trying to do some harm to me, that person is going to have a bad night. They are going to really wish they hadn't walked into that household. I don't understand, but I think your point is very valid. So let me go on to what, Nikki. I know you're saying you fight back. I get it. I know you're rebellious. I get it. Is it working? That is my question. Is what you're doing, are you gaining, and maybe you don't care, but I'll ask the question though, are you gaining people? Are people going, Nikki's right? Or are people going, nah, Nikki's crazy, I'm out?
Well, the ones who say I'm crazy and that they're out, they tune me out right away. The people who are still listening, and when you're in debates, I debate a lot, and a lot of times it may seem like a waste because I'm debating people who will never budge, but you don't debate to try to change their mind. You debate for the silent readers. I'm a convert, and so I know there's things that I wish would have been articulated to me or even just presented as questions way before it ever was. And that's how I'm framing everything, is what do I wish I would have heard earlier, because there's questions. I'm constantly thinking about these different issues, and I'm thinking, making sure I didn't fall into a different tribe and that I am where I belong. And so I'm just tearing them or chipping them apart every single way till it gets down to the bare question. So as far as the 2A goes, I don't even argue it in terms of the Second Amendment. I just argue it in terms of everybody has a natural right to self-defense.
I love that.
And so when they turn around and say, well, you don't need a gun for that. Well, okay, then how am I going to defend myself? First off, against a criminal who doesn't care about gun laws and is going to have one anyway. Second, just against a guy who's stronger than me. You're by saying I can't. You're saying I have no right to defend myself, or and then that forces them to say, well, you can fight them. It's like, well, is that realistic? Me against a grown man, or me against an armed man? So,
or a couple of men. What if it's 2 or 3 of them?
Yeah. I mean, even I had a little brother who was tiny for a long time, and he got stronger than me way before he got bigger than me. And I'm very strong, but guys are stronger, period. Which I know we're not allowed to say because, guys and I'm not a biologist, so I can't stand by anything.
Yes, you don't get to say that. You're not a biologist, Nikki. Stop overstepping your boundaries, okay? I don't see a PhD by your name. And so, yes, I'm kidding, obviously.
But
Michael,
to your question real quick about is it working? Yeah. First off, I have grown sons, and their friends have come more and more to my way of thinking. But also, truth always has to work. You're always reaching someone. You can't go by what you see is working. You just always state the truth, and you don't see how it's working, but there's people who are hearing it. The kid saying the emperor's naked. You've got to be that kid all the time.
Yeah. I remember when I ran for office in New York State, how many people started to see what was happening. I just got recognized on the street today, by the way. I was just out in the street today in Manhattan and got recognized by a guy. So, but every once in a while, someone will just yell like out of a window, Larry, yeah, Joe Rogan, or whatever. To do something like that, I'll get someone to yell at me out in the street sometimes. And I think, you know what? I impacted somebody. Like there's somebody who thought, hey, okay, it worked. Like running for office did make impact. Michael, you ran for office. Did it make impact? Do you think people noticed? Do you think people like, yeah, oh yeah, that guy? Do you think that happened?
Well, people in my neighborhood seem to hate me now, so yeah, I'd say it worked.
Okay, there we go. Okay, that's something.
But I love that we're talking about firearms because New York and California are very similar in that regard.
Yes.
And what's funny is me not taking
hold on, before you go there, Michael, before you go there, remember, New York was actually ranked least free state in the union 6 years running. Take that.
No, they're worse. New York's worse for sure. But
yeah, there we go.
They're definitely in the same vein. But what's funny about the whole Australian firearms thing is one of my closest friends who I lost during COVID because she wouldn't allow me over to her house for barbecues because I didn't take the vaccine. And I haven't talked to her since. Her sister moved to Australia and was a skeet and trap shooter. She was like featured in Sports Illustrated and all and stuff like that. But back to the California firearms thing, they have this thing where they want to. The Supreme Court says it's unconstitutional, and then they go and they come up with a bunch of other laws to try and work around it, and then it just goes up to the courts and back to the state, and it just goes back and forth. And they're trying to do this thing with assault weapons. So we'll talk about the AR and the AR-15 in here in California, or any rifle that they call an assault weapon. They make the most arbitrary and stupid rules that actually make firearms less safe. Like the whole, I wish I had my AR because I would show you guys, because I actually, you got to pick and choose your battles too. So one thing I was going to do, if I got past the primary, I was on camera as like a publicity stunt, but it would be a felony if I did it, was cut the fin off of my pistol grip. You guys may not know this.
How dare you make that an assault weapon?
Exactly, right? So in California, you're not allowed to have a pistol grip on your AR.
Correct.
So
not in New York either.
Or you have to have what's called a bullet button, which means you have to basically break the gun open to drop the magazine out. And they have this thing called the Juggernaut system that isn't great. I would prefer to just have the fin. The rule is you can't have your thumb below the trigger. It's just the most arbitrary rule. It makes no sense.
Yes.
But if I was to take a Dremel and just cut this little shark fin thing off the back of my pistol grip, I'd get whatever the charge is, 10 years. I was
probably
fully
5. They like 5 years for guns. Probably 5.
Is that what they like?
That's what they like. They like 5. That's their number.
Sounds about right. I had this whole plan where I was going to cut it off on camera, as a candidate, be like, okay, are you going to lock up a candidate? And I was fully planning on doing that as a, publicity stunt, and also like maybe it'll get other people to do it too. If you go to the gun range,
glad you didn't win then, because they would have put your ass in jail for 5 years. They wouldn't have thought twice.
Maybe I don't know.
They wouldn't have thought twice.
The range that I shoot at, nobody has those things, and people don't. It's not really.
But they're like behind. They can't have you like openly say that guns aren't that bad. They can't do that. That's unacceptable.
Right. And if I was to just be like, you know what, to stick it to the man, I'm gonna go walk around downtown Santa Cruz with the AR. I'm getting the SWAT team called on me. I might get lit up. It's so you do have to pick and choose your battles, but you can't comply either. So it's a delicate line to walk. And again, back to, is it working? Yes, it is working. I think every little bit of non-compliance, even if it's 10% more, it encourages other people to be non-compliant. And it spreads, just like leftist ideology is a mind virus. Being courageous and saying F you to the system, it encourages other people to do it too. So I would say I like that.
Let me grab a couple comments. I've got a bunch of people commenting if I can. Let me see. This is a nice one. Karen says, the appropriate and ethical way to deal with COVID was to respect what people decided to do and to do as you see fit for yourself. If people wanted to stay home, I'm sure many of us would have made sure they had deliveries they needed. And if people wanted to go out, I'm sure businesses would have been cleaning diligently to combat germs. The government force created teams, adversaries even. I completely agree. I'm not to be forward. I know a lot of people are like anti-jab. I'm not. I'm just anti-mandate. If you think the jab is good for you, get it, right? You do you. To your point, Kate, your body, your choice. I'm not mad at you. I'm mad when you're forcing me, right? Mm-hmm. But do you? And I think this is exactly right. The problem I have so often is people say, if it's right, it should be a law. And those two things don't go together, right? Because it's correct, so it should be a law. Well, what if I found out that people who are, 6'5" and above are bad parents? I made it up. I know that's true. But say if you're 6'5" or taller, you're going to have kids who go to jail. I made it up. So now we're going to say it's against the law. Yeah, I knew it was. Yep, that's because of you. So now you can't have kids. So Kate, you're tall too, right? How tall are you?
5'7". So
okay, you're not 6'6".
I'm not. No.
Nikki, are you 6'6"?
No, but my sons are 6'5" and 6'5.5". I'm 5'8".
Ooh. Okay, so those two, your two kids cannot have kids, and neither can you, Michael. Sorry, it's against the law.
Yeah.
We
No
decided.
grandkids, Nikki.
Yeah, no. So yeah, you
Oh,
can't
well.
have it. Sorry, it's not at work. No grandkids.
That
for
used
me.
to make me sad, but in this world, I'm not sure I want grandkids.
There we go. But my point being, just because it's right doesn't mean it should be a law. I mean, I really
Well, who
think that's a critical
decides?
aspect.
Yeah, it's also who gets to
decides?
be
Yes.
the moral arbiter. Like, are you going to let
Yeah.
governments be the moral arbiter of what's good or not? So another example I can give in my state of Western Australia at the moment is, as part of our gun license, they're going to be checking our social media and using use attitudes and opinion. This is written into the new law, using someone's views, attitudes, or opinions to judge if they are worthy of holding a firearms license. Now, that is giving the government the power to decide who has the correct views, attitudes, or opinions. It's a social credit system, and it's only just starting here. There's also surveillance states. They're putting us into a digital ID. You have to have a digital firearms license. It can't just be a physical one. So they're shifting us into this area where they can control us even more. And after what they did to us during COVID, the Australian government's keeping us locked up in our homes and in our own states for years, mandating the jab for 75% of the workforce in my state to have 3 injections, not just 2.
Wow.
Like, why would you give up any more liberty or freedoms to the government after what they did to us for the last 3 years? And gun owners have been treated like this since 1996, when they did their big gun confiscation and changed all the laws. So I'm very questionable about when governments bring in things for the good of the people, because it's not for the good of the people, it's for the good of the government and the people who work in government.
Absolutely, yes. You know, it's happening in New York State now too. New York State, our gun laws now are based upon that also. Social media is something you can look at now to decide if you can get a gun. I have it in New York State too. Same thing. Are we copying you or are you copying us? I'm not sure, Kate.
I think they're all talking to each other at these world forums.
Yeah,
right,
they are.
They're doing it with taxes here in California. They're trying to price people out of firearms and ammunition. That's what they're doing here. And San Jose, and I think California's trying to do it as a state too, but San Jose just implemented a policy that you have to register and insure your firearms every year, which inherently creates a list, you know.
Right.
And, yeah, so
and it's funny that immediately people will say, why do you care? So you're going to register your gun. It's just for safety. They're going to say that, but it's not for safety. It's for when they want to confiscate.
Yes,
that's not for safety.
Read a history book. I mean,
thank you. Yes. Any one of them, Nikki, there's lots of them and they all say the same damn thing. Absolutely. So yes, Karen says, she goes on to say, hold on. The Tuskegee experiment, I say no more. Yeah, that's true. I mean, yes, absolutely. The Legacy Right says it really is simply just job security. Yeah, the government keeps making more jobs, and then there is more job security. 100%. Yes, I see it constantly.
You're just talking about that.
More jobs. Go ahead.
You're just talking about that with the New York subways.
Absolutely. What I keep seeing here is they want to grow jobs. So the government is really bad at helping out business. It's one, except for cronies, obviously, but it's bad for growing regular business. So what will it do? It'll just make more jobs. It'll pass a law that creates an industry, right? So now we need to get, for example, we have to register all firearms that weigh more than 3 pounds, right? Whatever. They make that random law up. 3 pounds is a bad firearm for whatever reason. They made that number up. So now you have to have, of course, you got to have firearm scales. So now I happen to have a friend who makes firearm scales. So now he has an industry to weigh your firearms, right? And that's how it works. They create an industry through law. And the buddy all of a sudden now gets and someone's got to now, see which ones are this, which ones are that. So someone's got to regulate that. So now you got to have the firearm weight police. You got to have those people. You got to give them badges, have cool hats, I'm sure, right? Everyone has a cool hat. So you got to have a cool hat, whatever the case may be. And all of a sudden now I'm working for the government now. What do you do?
And our taxes are the ones paying for it. Our taxes pay for these crony industries, and we all get poorer. It's insane.
As the rich people flee.
Yeah, well, if it's federal, then we just make more debt, which now the Fed makes more money. So if it's state, we pay by taxes. If it's federal, we'll just print some more money. What could go wrong? Right? What could go wrong?
But they're taxing us, Larry. If they're taxing us and they're just printing more money, what are our taxes for?
Well, this is the part that gets me crazy, because what happens then is, now if you're someone who says, hey, you should, forgive my student debt. Well, you've got a point. If we're going to just print money for the cronies, why can't we print money for you? It's a valid point. As we print money for the cronies, if we print money for the military-industrial complex, they're right. They have a valid point. We shouldn't be printing money for anybody. But if we're going to do it for them, I get it. If you're going to send your money overseas, well, pay for my school, or pay for my debt, or pay for my whatever.
Right.
I get it. It makes sense.
I would much rather, if the government's going to be socialist and send the money to go fund wars, I would much rather than be socialist and be like, all right, maybe they should help kids out that want to go to college, or actually
something.
No, there's no socialism you're going to get me to think is a good idea, but I would at least have the money stay here.
We don't even get the good gimme parts of the socialism part. We only get the bad parts, right? We don't even get the good parts to it, right? God, we only get the bad ones. It's terrible.
Moved to
Absolutely. Yeah, yes. Well, they have issues. We have to worry about them. So, Wally World says 2A is so important. I agree.
Wally
100%.
World, nice to see you. He's one of my regulars.
There we go. He came over to see you. Look at that. You brought your people. Thank you. I appreciate it. Forrest Mommy says, hello, Kate and Goat and Larry and Nicken. Is that a nickname you have, Nicken?
Not that I know of.
Okay,
but maybe
so
I do now.
It. You spelled it wrong. It's fine. It's all good. We still love her. Michael Voss is watching. He says they want to force you to comply with their feelings. It's emotional manipulation, but they back threat up with abuse, verbal and physical, threats and outright violence. Every autonomous zone ever. The point that I want to bring up here is, it feels like, and it's the part that bothers me when I see it. His point's very valid. If you don't do the thing, you're not wrong. You're a bad person, right? And if I think the right way, I'm not correct. I'm a good person. That is what I feel happens often. Am I wrong here?
No, they've decided. They've picked who are the good guys and who are the bad guys. And it has nothing to do with individuals. And that's why they look at everything through the lens of oppressed and oppressor. And it doesn't matter who the victim is, and it doesn't matter who the attacker or the bad guy is. They judge by who the person, what category they fall into, not what actions they take. They don't see individuals at all. And when you don't see individuals, that's when bad things happen throughout history. Yeah. And we're going into a dark period now. Guarantee it.
That's why I feel like leftist brains are breaking so much, because they've wholeheartedly bought into this agenda that's Marxist at its core. You just said it, the whole oppressor oppressed thing. And everything they're observing around them is saying the exact opposite of what they've been told is good and right and correct. So
what do you mean by that?
Well, their whole ideology and way of thinking is in direct conflict with what they're witnessing around them. Where, like, let's just take voting for Joe Biden, for example. All of a sudden, the economy's horrible. Everything's way more expensive. We're in 2 giant wars. Like, everything bad that they said Trump was going to do, now Biden is doing. And then the whole vaccine thing, it's like, I think people are in the back of their heads, the people that became, authoritarians, foaming at the mouth, trying to get everybody to force inject. They're kind of like, they're doing the whole meme thing. Wait, are we the baddies? They're doing the whole thing. So it's, people's realities are directly in opposition to what they're observing around them. So people are just losing it. It's crazy.
I feel like that's where I feel like we have people who are fighting the system have allies on the left. And what I mean by that is, what you called leftists, I think most people call liberals or progressives. But actual leftists, people who actually believe in a leftist ideology, they don't like Biden either. They don't like these things either. They don't like government either. I would say, if you go far enough left, you get your guns back, right? Because they actually want to go against the government too, right? They want localized communities with no government. They want direct democracy in their own communities. And I think that people are either coming more towards libertarian type views or going totally far left to where there should be no government. There should be no nothing. There should be only direct democracy. And I think the people who are thinking that way, I think they may be allies. Nikki, you look at me like I'm crazy. Am I wrong?
No, I think it goes back to how you define these terms.
Right.
Like, for one thing, I would never call a leftist a liberal. I consider
Right.
myself a classical liberal. So,
Mm.
and then for me,
Okay.
and there's different spectrums out there, but for me, the spectrum is far right is extreme right is no government, extreme left is totalitarian government. That's the
Same.
spectrum I use.
Hold on. Do it again.
So,
Say it again.
extreme right, as far right as you can go. To me, the spectrum starts all the way on the right with no government. And then you get to the middle, which is, to me, a constitutional republic. And then
Okay.
the more left you go, the more government. Until all the
Okay.
way on the left is an authoritarian, totalitarian government. That's the spectrum I use. But if you ask 100 people, you're going to get like 70
Okay.
different answers. So that's why anytime I'm in a conversation, I have people define their terms, because I don't want to have a pissing contest. I actually want to communicate and make sure
I
we're on
like
the
that.
same thing, because I am always trying to get converts. And I think there are people who maybe identify as Democrat but are confused by everything. There are people who can be reached. One problem I think is that even though I think more people are waking up, we let it get so far out of hand. We've got this massive administrative state that's accountable to nobody. I mean, it's a bigger monster we're fighting than people realize, because all they're going to have to do is drop the charade of pretending like they care about what we care about, because they've got so much control. I'm not saying to give up the fight. I will never give up the fight. I've got kids, but I mean, every generation has to fight. But I think it's a bigger battle than people realize.
I get it. The legacy right is on my side with this one. Actual leftists are historically anarchists. Historically, that's true. And I'm not sure if that's 100% true now, but I think historically that is accurate. As you go further left, you actually wind up getting anarchy if you go further left enough.
Well, because they say it's a circle. They say if you go,
It is.
because anarchy is going to cause too much chaos, is going to cause too much order. So it becomes a circle.
Oh, I like
I
that.
mean,
Too much chaos will create too much order. Look at you. That's a good one.
Yeah, you need the perfect balance. And it's hard to find that.
I'm going to steal that. And Nikki, I'm going to give you literally no credit for that. I'm just going to
Okay.
act like I made it up and I'm just going to totally steal that and act like I made that up.
That's okay. I'll forget it in 5 minutes.
There you go. So
we just said that.
Win-win. I love it. I totally win-win. I love that. That's great. So Mike says, the most dangerous time is when people are confronting facts that debunk their feelings and beliefs. People fight hard to justify the worldview they have adopted. Being wrong is being evil. And you know what? I see that. I do. I see people say, I can't be wrong because if I'm wrong, I'm evil. However, to your point, Nikki, I think that the most zealous are the converted. So when you get someone who actually goes, wait a minute, was I wrong all these years? And they actually go, that Nikki woman was right the whole time. When that actually happens, I feel like you get some people who are zealots. I feel like you do.
Well, I didn't become a zealot, but I became very my boyfriend had to tell me to rein it in, because I was like, the first few years when I figured out all the lies, I was pretty brutal. Now I'm very sweet and civil.
There we go. So, Kate, are you gaining converts there in Australia, or are you? I guess my worry is, I think about the few people who are popular coming out of Australia that hang around New York. There aren't that many of them, but there are some who are popular, hang around New York. All of them feel like, I can't think of one that doesn't say things like, oh my God, I'm so glad Australia banned guns. Like, they're all on board with that. You are one of the rare people I know from Australia who's like, this is a bad idea. Are you winning? No?
I think that it will be my generation and the generation below me that will make the change here in Australia, because we have been subjected to mass manipulation of the media since 96, when we had the gun confiscation and big gun law changes, to convince the masses that guns are evil and they are not a symbol of liberty. I appreciate that they are a symbol of liberty. I've come from Italian background, so my grandfather escaped fascist Italy. So I know how important it is for the people to be armed. And to some Australians, they're not there yet. But after what we've gone through the last 3 years in particular, and seeing our country slide so far to the left, like taking control of our language, changing our culture, people have had enough. Australians, by our nature, we're very easygoing. Like, it's no worries, mate. Everything will be fine. But if you push us to the point where we can't be happy, we can't associate with our friends and family in peace, we can't afford to go to the pub because it's $16 for a pint of beer, that's when people are going to say, and now they're talking about taking away our four-wheel drives and diesel cars. That's changing our culture. We are a nation of outdoor enthusiasts. We love going bush. We love going hunting. We love going camping. We have the best beaches in the world. They're trying to take that away from us and force us into these 15-minute cities and change our culture.
Yes.
That's when I'm seeing, and just going out into the communities as well. That's where activism really makes a change. It's fine to sit on Facebook and do these kind of live shows, and that's all part of it. But actually getting out in the communities, having these one-on-one conversations, and with family and friends too, that takes a lot of courage. We've lost friends and family, all of us here, because of it. But you know what? One day they might thank us for it. One day there'll be that moment where they'll think, oh, that's what they meant when they were bringing that up. It's from a place of care. And the fact that, like I've said before, liberty is always the answer. Liberty will always provide the best life for all of us. I truly believe that.
Kate, you are making me feel so good. Thank you. I feel all warm and fuzzy now. It's amazing. I feel good. I'm going to have to call you like every week and have you just give me a quick pep talk.
If you ever need to see us, let me know.
I love it. But no, I think there's a valid point, because I've been doing this, and I cross, for those who don't know, I cross New York State every single year. I go to every single county in New York State every year, even when I don't run, doesn't matter. I've been doing it for 6 years in a row. This year will be my 7th year doing it. And every once in a while, I get new people who show up to my events. And they'll be like, yeah, my friend told me about you. And at first I thought you were crazy. But now, I kind of like you. And then they have Ladder Shop shirt or something, like they bought a shirt online or something. So it's kind of cool. So I do see it happen. I do see it happen here or there. So I appreciate that. I really do. Michael, do you think you're going to run again? Or you like, I'm done. I'm out. I'm not doing it anymore.
I don't know. It's sort of like I run ultra marathons.
That's a no.
No, it's not. So I'm a runner. I run ultra marathons, and at the end of every race, or like the last 5 miles of every race, you're always like, why am I doing this? This is such a terrible idea. How did I get into this? And then as soon as it's done, you're like, all right, when's my next race? There's something to, I always make the analogy of going out and choosing to do something really hard, by choice, because it makes it easier to deal with things that are difficult when it's not by your choice. So yeah, I think I probably will end up doing this again.
There we go. All right, let me quickly talk to my audience if I could.
You have to run so you can do that gun stunt.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I can have to write a check to your GoFundMe so that I can get you out of jail. Absolutely.
Well, hey, I'm in SoCal, so if you do run again, let me know. I'll help you campaign.
Absolutely.
There we go. I love it. Guys, if you're watching this show and you like what you hear, then do me a favor, click the like button. If you don't click the like button, you are saying literally you hate Michael. That's what you're saying if you do not click the like button. And I happen to love him. So click that like button, damn it.
You just lost like half your viewers.
I lost like half. I did. It's true. I got to click the like button. Not just that. If you're watching on Twitter or X, retweet this right now. Just retweet it. It's fine. Re-exit, repost it, whatever is the thing. I don't care whichever one it is. Do that. If you want to support the show when you're watching on YouTube, you can always super chat this if you're watching Ladder Sharpe YouTube. And if you really love me, and I hope you do, then you can actually join, become a member. Click that join button for $49 per month. And I can do more of this. And maybe Kate and I would do a weekly pep talk show. See, because you do your $4.99, do that. No promises. But maybe, right? Could happen. Do that. And all of a sudden things will be great. But either way, no matter what you do, please follow these wonderful people. Please follow Nikki on Twitter at N Moonitz. Please follow Kate at Lady Liberty AUS. And please follow Michael at SC Mountain Goat. By the way, all of their other things, connections are all in the show description on YouTube and Facebook. And Michael has a Give, Send, Go or GoFundMe. Which one do you have?
Yeah, it's a Give, Send, Go.
Give, Send, Go. If you want to help him out so he can get his own stuff rocking and rolling so he can run again, we can now guilt him into running again by giving him money. That does work. So he'll get guilty and go, fine, they gave me money, I'll run. So they'll do that. We can do that also to help us all out. I do appreciate that. Let me grab a couple comments now, if I could. Roger says, Larry, I'm a socialist, and I see common interests on antitrust, anti-censorship, anti-war, criminal justice reform, especially the police taking care of government so much control and direct democracy. I think he's right. I think there actually is common cause for people on the left if they're actually socialists. I think the idea of antitrust is a good idea. Anti-censorship, anti-war, criminal justice. I think we can absolutely create single issue coalitions to draw people together for whatever issue that we want to, get together. I like single issue coalitions. I don't know. Am I wrong here? Oh, you guys do not like single issue coalitions. Okay. I walked into a minefield there, didn't I?
How you define that?
Yeah.
I mean,
I define that by saying, let's assume, for example, someone who is, say, very conservative on drugs, say, and they think all drugs are bad, but they think the Second Amendment's awesome. I would not agree with them on the drug issue. I do not think all drugs are bad, but I would 100% hold hands with them on the Second Amendment. So why wouldn't I create why wouldn't I create a single issue coalition to get a maybe law passed or rescinded, and then when it comes to drugs, we're going to separate?
Yeah, no, that's good. My question is always, does it give the government more power or less? If it gives the government more power, I'm not on board. They have they already have too much.
Yeah.
So anything that gives the government more power, I'm against. What?
See, look, Joel says licensing, permits, and fees make us safer. Clearly,
that's sarcastic. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Like, you got that. Yes, you did get that. Yes, that was a joke. 100%. Yes. But to be forward, though, there's a part of that that's true, right? If you ask people, particularly, I live in New York City. If you ask them about, permits or license, they often think, well, we got to make sure people are safe and have control. I remember this true story. This is from the Young Turks. The Young Turks show is, for those who don't know, is a left-leaning show, openly left-leaning show. And Democrats, Biden isn't left-leaning show. But they were a very left-leaning show. They have become much more of a corporatist type recently, right? Last couple of years.
Anna's getting red-pilled, though.
Yes, so they are becoming a bit more, but that's okay. My point being, when they were mad at Milei in Argentina, and when he says, I'm going to get rid of this and get rid of that, and they literally said, you're getting rid of the Department of Transportation? You don't want transportation? Like, in their minds, if there's no Department of Transportation, there will be no one will drive a truck. All the cars will disappear if there is no Department of Transportation. They literally get rid of the Department of Commerce. You don't want any commerce? Without the Department of Commerce, no one will have business. They believe it. So I think there's some, as a joke, he's joking, but I think there's some truth to that. Am I wrong?
Do you know why we don't have little trucks in the U.S. anymore?
Why?
Brand new little trucks? Because of the EPA and the CAFE standards. There's a $10,000 Toyota truck available, I think, in Japan right now. Just came out. It's a little, it's amazing. I want one so bad. It's 10 grand. It's a little 2-seater truck, and it's got like a bed where the sides fold down into a flat bed. 10 grand. We can't have it here because of the EPA and their standards and nobody can figure out, like, mathematically what their whole standards are. Nobody can explain it clearly, but it's that stuff. It's all, for your safety, for the environment, for the better good of everybody. And then it's just to drive home an agenda. Like, I always bring up the offshore windmill projects. They say that, like, all these offshore windmill stuff that they want to do, they say it's for the environment. It's absolutely not. It's horrible for the environment. And all it's going to do is line the same pockets of everybody that, BlackRock and all that.
You are correct. 100%. You are correct. It does drive me crazy that we think we're helping and then we wind up hurting. I lived in Japan for 4 years, and I remember those small trucks. They had them back then when I was there, and people loved it. Usually it was people who, like, for example, had a small store or had a small farm. They put their stuff in the back of the truck and they drive their stuff to the store, to the farm, whatever. It supported everything. Budget. Small budget, yes. These are right. All those things, right? It completely worked. I absolutely 100% agree. Yes. So Michael says nothing ever moved before the Department of Transportation. Everything stayed exactly where it was. He's right. He's right. Before that, no one could move.
Yeah.
Nobody. There were no roads. No roads. Yes. Until the Department of Transportation, there was no roads. It's true. Absolutely. Yes. So Roger brings up the idea of single issue coalitions are formed running ballot measures. That's true. When you have ballot measures, very often you will find everyone who wants that one thing will get together regardless of their other issues, right? So, we want this thing done. We will all go down and get that done. I think that definitely is a good idea. I like the idea of doing that completely. I definitely do. So I don't know. Michael goes on to say, still amazes me that any population would give up its guns. It shouldn't. They do constantly. Constantly.
Yeah. So on that note, everybody's, I'm anti-gun, except no, you're not. You're anti-people having guns and only the authority having guns. And if there's going to be any laws towards guns, it should be laws towards the police and how they have to be up to snuff on their 100 yards. They have to be able to. I think every cop should be at least a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Like they want only the cops to have firearms, but I know tons of people that are way better trained than cops. And
you've seen how some of these cops, they literally will fire at anything for anybody. Yes,
the acorn.
They have
thing.
Less. Yeah, doesn't matter. Yes.
That was
yes,
awesome.
I'm sorry. Yes, he already said it. Joel pops it already. Acorn. Correct. Yes. Yes, he knew it exactly right.
So
yeah.
good.
And how about we stop releasing violent criminals too? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think everyone should be able to carry a gun. But as soon as you commit a violent crime with one, you're in a cage and you don't get out. That's my opinion. If you're not safe to be around law-abiding citizens, and you don't get to be around law-abiding citizents.
But who decides that?
I mean, they have to actually commit a crime, a violent crime. I don't think it should be a crime to carry a gun anywhere.
Yep, 100%.
I have used that, by the way. You might like this little trick I use with people sometimes. I'll say,
did you steal it from me?
No, I did not.
Credit. Okay.
But this one you can steal from me and say you made it up. It's totally fine.
Okay.
I go to people who I know tend to be left on drugs, and I'll say, possession's not really a crime, is it? And they're like, no, it's not. Like, you have a plant in your pocket, that's not really a crime, right? They go, no, it's not a crime at all. So just having something, that's not a crime. Yeah. So having a gun's not a crime, right? What? That's possession, right? You can see but no, the gun is somehow evil on its own. No, if you do something with the gun, that might be a crime. Sure. Right? If you use it to hurt somebody, steal, rob somebody,
or
shoot
if it stop one.
But I'm saying, that's what I said, it might be a crime, right? If you're hurting someone, it might be a crime. I could see that argument, right? 100%. But I have it. How is that a crime? I don't get it. And I think people really are when I say that, it makes them think at least, right? Mm-hmm. So I do use that often in that regard. Like that one. And Gary says, more guns, less crime. By the way, some of you may not know this. Ohio recently basically passed constitutional carry 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. One of the two, something like that. And when that happened, the crime didn't go up. Everyone said that's the end of the world. Crime is going to go up. It's going to be the wild, wild west. Everyone's going to be shooting people all over the place. It's going to happen. Oh my God, it's going to be shooting people. Didn't happen. And the person who put it out was actually like the Secretary of State. It was like, hey, got to tell you something. Wasn't that bad. This is a very good thing for us. I think it's a very good thing. Sonia says, still waiting on mushrooms to not be a crime. Sonia, me too. I am with you.
They're not in
me
Oakland.
Too. Yes, in certain areas they aren't. Yes, I agree. The thing that I come up with, and for those of you who don't know, I'm one of the squarest guys there is. The only drug I use is caffeine. That's it. I don't even drink. I don't smoke. I am completely square. That's the only drug I use. Totally square. And anybody should do whatever they want. Who cares what I do? Like, who cares what I do? Right? So I'm the guy who's like, do shrooms, do weed, do cocaine. I don't care. Do you, right? Drink, smoke, whatever you do you. I'm just going to have my coffee and shut up. That's what I'm going to go do. But you do your thing. And I see people, to Sonia's point, who are so afraid of mushrooms, who think, well, people will go crazy. Well, let's say they do. So what? I mean, they don't. But let's say they do. So what? And on a personal note, I'm a veteran. And I know that so many of my veteran brothers have been helped by psychedelics. Helped tremendously. And to your point, Michael, the government is stopping them from being helped. And now more vets are committing suicide because the government is afraid of mushrooms. Crazy.
Well, the whole drugs thing. I mean, I'm one of the libertarians that thinks all drugs should be legal, all of them. But I do not believe they should be. People seem conflicted on this. That I just don't think they should be allowed to be consumed out in the open. But if we allowed all drugs to be legal, and the market determined, like there's shops that opened up, drug stores, that they sell whatever you want, heroin, fentanyl, whatever. Well, if somebody goes and buys fentanyl and it's laced with trank, you guys know about trank? There's a huge problem in San
Tell me what
Francisco.
trank is.
So trank is a horse tranquilizer that they cut fentanyl with, and it literally rots the flesh. This is why you see so many people walking around with open festering wounds, because that's not fentanyl doing that. That's the trank doing it, because it's a horse tranquilizer. Horses have much more muscle mass, so it literally eats your flesh. Now, if you were doing this in the open market, when there was competition, there was different stores, you can find out, hey, that store over there, that's not fentanyl. They're selling trank. That store's going to go under. They're not going to be able to do it anymore because you have the market competing. Instead, you have illegal immigrants from Honduras in San Francisco. Those are the ones selling this crap. And the cops, if they get arrested, they're released within 48 hours. And if the community decides to come together,
Nikki mad.
Yeah, I know.
Why? Wait,
Just
what?
made Nikki mad.
No, you didn't.
I
I have an orthodox childhood related to drugs, so I think the government has no more business what goes into my body.
No, he just said that when people are selling stuff illegal, selling the death drugs, that they get arrested and they're released within 48 hours. Now you need because they're back out.
Well, the thing is, they're protected. They've created anarcho tyranny in San Francisco by the cops protect the drug dealers in this way. So that if the illegal immigrants from Honduras they get caught dealing the drugs, they get caught with separated drugs, money, a scale, they get arrested, they're going to be released within 48 hours. Now the cops can't do anything. If the community gets together and decides, you know what, we're going to go kneecap these guys. Well, the cops are going to now take care of the citizens that go and kneecap they are literally protecting the drug dealers.
Yes.
That would not be occurring if you had a free market of drugs. So
I'll go one step further. If you actually had an open market of drugs, there would be no fentanyl.
Probably not. No.
Heroin.
No, people go back to heroin.
There'd be no crack. There would be. Here's how I know this, right? I live in New York City. My day job, I'm a business consultant. That's what I do. That's how I pay my bills. A lot of people I deal with are in tech, law, finance, usually Manhattan, wealthy. All of them do drugs, but they don't get in trouble. Why? They do the good drugs. They do cocaine because they're wealthy. Or now a lot of them, believe it or not, they snort Adderall. That's a cool thing now. You snort Adderall. So they'll get Adderall or they'll get cocaine. Compared to crack, this is a super safe drug. Well, if the reason why cocaine is so expensive is because of the war on drugs. People need their fix. The government stops people from getting their fix, stops them from getting treatment, so they go get crack and heroin and meth and all those things. None of them would exist. The government made meth. The government made crack with the war on drugs. To your point, Michael, if we had a free market, nobody would voluntarily go for fentanyl. If you could just get coke, you would just get coke.
Probably not. I've never done either, so I couldn't tell you. And I'm like you. I'm super straight edge. All I do is caffeine, and it's
yes.
And like Ron Paul says, Ron Paul's talking way back in the day about legalizing drugs, and everybody's freaking out about it. And then once the crowd silenced down, he was like, "Okay, let me ask you guys a question. If cocaine was legal tomorrow, how many of you guys would go out and just start doing cocaine?" And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I probably wouldn't." Oh, well, freaking go figure. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. I'm with you completely. So, Kate, do you have a drug issue personally?
Do you have a drug issue, Kate?
In Australia. Personally, I don't mind either one. I'm fine either way. Yes.
No, I don't have a drug issue, but I'm all for people doing whatever they want as long as they're not hurting anyone else. I think that's what it comes down to, and that's what I find when I have conversations with people about this issue in particular. As long as you're not hurting anyone else, go for it. Like, that's it. That's the bottom line, and that seems to be the thing that resonates with people the most. So my body, my choice, like, use the words that they understand, and that's how you have the conversation.
Yeah. But what about when they do the children, right? Isn't that always the thing? You can't do it because of the children. What am I going to tell my kids? How about what if my kids see it? Isn't that always the thing? And when you do that, doesn't that make you a bad person for saying to hell with your kids? Right? Isn't that a way they shame you?
Well, that's a parental choice thing. That's like, I believe in parental rights and I believe in protecting the children, like anyone under the age of 18. I would go as further and to say, like, don't put any drugs in your body until your brain is developed. So that's like late 20s, I would say. But that's my own personal perspective. I wouldn't force my view onto another parent. I really believe it's up to the family and the community to set those standards of what they think is acceptable for kids to know and for what kids to do. So I would never tell them how to raise their kids, but it's all about, regulation does have a place. And that's why, even though these days I feel like I'm a bit more of an anarchist because of going through what I am in Australia with guns, and I'm just at the point now that I just think government is purely corrupt and evil and is not serving the people. So that's where I'm swinging more towards anarchy. But then I do think that things like regulation, especially when it comes to drugs, like having a regulated market where you can buy them in the free market properly, that's how it should be. But we have a fair way to go before we get other people to see that, especially in 100%. Australia, where cannabis is only legal via prescription at the moment, and they've just made vape. Nicotine vapes have to be bought with a prescription now. So they're forcing it into the medical industrial complex. It's all about money. So once again, that to me is over-regulation, and it's actually going to make it people get these things off the black market because it's cheaper. It's cheaper for me to go to the drugstore and buy an illegal vape than it is to go through the process of getting a prescription. So who are they really protecting? It's
When I was running in 2018, we were trying to figure out, what was the right amount, right, to deal with cannabis. And our policy officially was no separate taxes, everything else, no separate cannabis tax. But then people asked, Larry, but would you create a special tax? Would you give in if they wanted a special tax, but they would legalize it, but put a special tax? And my team and I we literally just did some numbers on this, crunched some numbers, and I said, yes, I would accept 3% tax. And they said, 3%? Why that? Because with my team's numbers that we checked, in the black market, once you get past 3%, that is when a person begins thinking about going to the black market. So if something costs $1 in a black market and $1.03 in a store, the vast majority of people buy it in a store. Once it's $1.04, they start thinking, should I go in the black market? Now, I know that's weird, but that's the numbers we came up with. We looked at everything that was going in the black market. And so I said, okay, I'll take a 3% tax at max, no more than that. Because you're exactly right, Kate. Once the tax is too high, people go to the black market. It's just, and it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's milk, whether it's drugs, whether it's cigarettes. We dealt with cigarettes here in New York State. It's a big deal with cigarettes. Now, in New York State, people the tax is so high on cigarettes, they go to the Native American reservations because there's no tax on there. And they go there and they buy the cigarettes there, right? Because there's no tax there. And what was the amount where they would just not do it? And we found out that a lot of the cases, about 3%. That was the number that the average person went, I'm going to black market. I think it's completely correct. Absolutely. So I'm sorry, Michael, did you want to say something? I'm sorry, were you talking?
No. Just taking it in, Larry.
So I want to grab what the scientific libertarian says. He says, when Colorado legalized marijuana, teen usage dropped, which shows that if your parents are doing something, it's just not cool anymore.
But look at what it did to his hair.
Oh, I'm sorry, what happened?
I said, look at what it did to his hair.
Maybe his parents had cool hair, so he said, I'll do this and I'll show you. Oh. That could have been that. So yes. But you're right, though, Kate. There are some people who are here. Mike says, sorry, guys. Addicts hurt themselves, their loved ones, and the community. I don't support legalizing drugs. And yes, I am a conservative Republican. Shocker, but yes, absolutely.
So that's the thing. You're conflating drug use with your drug addiction with being legalized. And it's if there was stores and an open market of drugs, the drugs that are going to be more likely consumed are going to be the cleaner drugs, the less addictive drugs, the drugs that you're going to have less of, like a hangover or whatever you call it when it's another drug where it takes a long time to recover. It's not going to create more addicts. If anything, it's going to create less addicts, less drug addicts. And the people that are dying on the streets of San Francisco are dying from super dirty fentanyl that they're buying under the idea that they're buying fentanyl and they're actually buying tranq. And yeah, I agree. That stuff's awful. It's horrible. They do hurt their loved ones. My Uncle Dan jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge when I was 10 years old because he was a drug addict. I'm still advocating for the legalization of drugs.
My mother was an addict and a felon. And I'm with you. My mother was an addict and a felon. I pulled her out of prison. So yes, I still say I wish that wasn't the right answer. I'm with you. 100%. So by the way, Nikki, he responded, it is an AI generated picture of Dr. Hugo Strange as half porcupine.
Oh,
I like it.
See, there we go. So he was there for you. Absolutely. Gary says
Bane.
The Australian, it does, yeah, Bane, I like that. Australian government makes too much money in fines to legalize drugs. It's a cash grab. Is that a thing, Kate?
Yes, absolutely. It's the same with traffic offences, gun permits, gun licensing. They try and price us out of the market and then punish us if they catch us doing like victimless crime stuff. The fines in Australia are insane. Like it's just got to the point where we're not free people at all. I mean, if you can't walk to the shop and buy a vape without a prescription, without being charged or arrested, are you really free? And that's just one tiny example.
No, I like it. They very often you see people turn law enforcement into a profit center, right? You see it constantly happen. I see it in New York all the time. I want to kind of shift if I could. I've taken a lot of comments and the comments have gone all over the place and I get it. I do. Well, hold on. Karen says one thing I want to bring up about the prisons are full of drug addicts while child rapists walk among us. Shit makes no sense.
Don't get me started. Yeah.
We just hit did we just hit something? Michael, go ahead. I like this. Go ahead.
Our world's run by satanic pedophiles. I mean, you guys, I'm sorry. I'm just going to say it. Have you read One Nation Under Blackmail? And you guys
I have not.
The Whitney Webb book, fantastic. And then, all the Epstein stuff. And then you guys heard about all the P. Diddy stuff that came out recently, right?
No.
He's basically
what am I missing?
Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. He's basically the Epstein of the rap industry. You haven't heard about this? The person that's
breaking my heart. P. Diddy, really? No.
Yeah,
not
sorry,
him.
dude. Yeah, and he probably ordered the hit on Tupac as well. So a guy, Ian Carroll, is doing great work on this. Just check him out.
Hold on. Kenneth is in your side. Kenneth says, walk among us, more like hold the highest positions in our government. Okay, yeah. This is something. I'm behind the times on this one. Okay.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's horrific. Yeah, that book, One Nation Under Blackmail, is, it's extremely eye-opening for sure. All
right, now I got, you guys gave me homework to do. I'm not sure I'm happy about that, but anyway, I want to go back to the point that I originally talked. I know we did a lot of good comments. I know it was fun, but Nikki, how are we going to resist to where it's going to work, or are we?
Well, again, when you say where it's going to work, it's a never-ending battle. So
okay,
it's every generation, and I think what we need to get back under control is education, because every generation needs to understand what they need to fight to preserve. Young people, the left has been in control of our educational system for my entire life, I think.
Yep. Absolutely.
And kids are being taught that America is just this horrible place, that, it's, and then you see a video of some freaking cannibal in Haiti eating someone he's roasted. And to me, that's the perfect example of, look, you kids are being taught that you're in this horrible place. This is what could be if we don't hold on to what we've got, because this isn't the norm. What we have right now isn't the norm. And that's what they think. They think that the default is everybody being civilized, and it's not. And so we have to every generation has to learn what they're protecting and what they're holding on to. And we've completely let that go.
I like that.
And so it's not a quick fix, because we've been sleeping behind the wheel for a long time. So
let me touch this if I could. I'm going to steal all your stuff, Nikki. I'm taking everything. Okay. But I do want to ask this question. Are you saying that the way to resist here is to take control of schools, either through school boards or school choice or things like that? Is that where you go?
Absolutely. That's for sure. We need school choice, and we need to make that we need to make that clear to people that that's, if you oppose school choice, you are not on the side of struggling inner city kids, regardless of the race. That is something, anybody who opposes school choice wants to keep kids down. And look at look at the results. Kids are graduating from high school barely able to read. And that's,
Yes.
how do you, so we've got at least one entire generation that doesn't know how to think anymore because the schools don't teach you how to think.
100%.
And we've got people who are supposed to be the truth tellers and the experts who are in on the lies, saying you can be born in the wrong body, boys can be girls, all this stuff. And these kids have spent their entire lives just looking at a screen and picking who they decide to believe. And we
Yes.
don't know how to think. And that's, we may have one lost generation, but we can't let that continue. We have to get control of the educational system. Nothing's going to work until we do that.
There we go. During the lockdowns, I actually homeschooled my my youngest daughter. So because I had to pull her out. I and it was good for her. Like she actually thrived, right? She actually thrived. It was actually good for her. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So Kate, tell us, how should we be resisting? Is it just yelling and screaming at people? I mean, I like doing that. I'm just not sure it's going to work.
You're very good at that, Larry. You keep doing what you're doing. But it's also, we all have a part to play. And it's when you find your place in this freedom community, I'll use that term loosely, the liberty community, everyone has an important role to play. So it might be just a simple thing as having that conversation with your workmate. It might be just picking it up, just pushing back at when you're in a group of people that think very differently for you. It's putting that spark out there of liberty and shining the light and then letting people go with it. So there's different levels and different ways we can make an impact. I try and do it with spicy memes and my podcast, Shooting the Breeze, which I've just started, and getting out into the community, talking with real people, not just sitting online, like the face-to-face conversation and the impact you can have on someone when you just spend that 5 minutes talking to them normally. We're all people. We all want to learn. As long as we have an open mind and an open heart, then that's, I'm a bit prophesizing this morning that I'm feeling very pious, I think.
I'm loving it, Kate. Don't stop. I love it. Keep going. This is all good stuff. It's great. Well, you're making me realize that, me going out and running for office and then following up the years after, it's what I'm doing. I'm doing what you told me, right? I'm actually out and doing it. I'm sitting.
It's a mission. It's also a mission. It's a marathon, if I can use that, like Michael. It's not a sprint, and it's, you might stop for a while and you need time out as well. Like, it is a bit of a burden what we're doing because we are really wanting to make the world a better place for the future. We want liberty for everyone. And we've seen so much of that eroded the last few years in particular. And your country, like, I love your country and its story. Founded, it was a libertarian country.
Yes.
So it breaks my heart to look to you as the beacons of light and liberty. And I don't know, I really want to have faith in you guys, but it's going to take a movement on the ground to get your country back. And then Australia is even further behind you on the fight for liberty. So it's so important to have these conversations and have people taking up the fight. Like, just do whatever you can.
Don't give up on me, Kate. I can be better. I can change. I can change, Kate. I can change. Don't give up on me. I can change. Yes. Michael, tell me, what should we be doing?
Well, so Australia is way behind the U.S. in terms of authoritarianism. They don't have two in everything, but California and Australia are very similar, and Canada as well, with the authoritarianism, and everything that starts in California ultimately trickles into the rest of the country. And so, like Kate said, everybody kind of has to find their niche on how they're going to fight back. And mine has been, I've become very comfortable with being uncomfortable. So my unofficial campaign slogan was "fuck you, no." Just fuck you, no. You think, so you want, I coach cross country, and I was told in the beginning of the season last season, like, hey, you may have some they thems. You may have some boys that identify as girls. Fuck you, no. I'm not coaching. if you want to have boys competing against my female athletes, I'm not coaching. Find another coach. I'm not. We have to be able to. You have to be willing to sacrifice something to stand up for what you believe in. At the same time, you can't. You have to pick and choose your battles. You can't just be going to war with everyone all the time.
Yes.
But I've lost a lot of friends. I've gained a lot of new friends. I hope all of you are my new friends. But in my town here, I've become very comfortable with people do not like me. Like a lot of people don't like me, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to keep telling you, you're wrong. That's it.
But this is the Kate's point, right? What I find is, when I cross the state, when I cross the country sometimes, people really don't like me sometimes online, but when they actually meet me, it's not the same. Like they don't do the same stuff when they see me, right? They may say, Larry, I didn't like your take on this thing. And I'll go, okay, what happened? And we'll talk it out. And they'll be like, oh, okay, Larry's not a bad guy. Like they just talk to me when they're in person. This goes to what Kate's talking about. People in my neighborhood, people around New York City is 6-1 Democrat Republican, right? 6-1. Very liberal city. As you know, like San Francisco is a liberal city, right? It is. People know what I think, but they don't hate me because I talk to them, if that makes any sense, right? Because they disagree or think I'm wrong, but they don't hate me, except online. Online, they hate me, but in person, they don't. I don't know. Have you found a difference in that, Michael, or no?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Everybody wants to put you in a box, right? They want to define you in certain terms. And it's like, that's why I like going running with people. My running partner's a leftist. I like going on long runs with people because it's like, you're stuck with me and we're going to have to talk about stuff. It's like, you better be fast, and if you're slow, I'm going to slow down and just talk your ear off. It's, you really get to know somebody and you get to hammer out issue by issue. And then when you find that you disagree with somebody, you could be like, okay, hey, we disagree on this. Let's talk it out amicably, and see what specifically we disagree on. Like I just got a big spat with open borders. Like just had a huge thing with the whole open borders debate. And everybody gets so rabid about it. And it's like, wait, can we talk about why you feel that it should be open borders and why I feel that we should have some sort of borders, and that's a huge debate in the libertarian community.
Because you're evil, Michael, and not a real libertarian. Okay?
I'm not a real libertarian. You're right.
Not a real libertarian. It's the reason. So yes. By the way, Kate is the favorite. Shut the Punk Up says Kate is my favorite.
Bless. Thank you.
So there we go. Yes. But Karen agrees with me. She says, hoes don't really be the same offline. Cardi B. Which is true. Cardi B is correct here. I'm not sure we always want to follow Cardi B's advice, but in this case, we do. How about that? In this case, we will follow Cardi B's advice.
Single issue coalition.
That's my single issue coalition on how hoes be offline. That's our single issue coalition. Yes, exactly. But I want to get to some more comments. Before I do that, I want to talk to my audience real fast. Guys, if you like what you're hearing, you like what you're watching, click that like button. It really does matter. If you're watching this on one of my Twitter channels, please retweet it right now. Right? Don't wait. I know we're a good-looking panel. It's true. I'm a very handsome man. It's true. Michael's kind of good-looking too. Not as good-looking as me, but he's kind of good-looking too. But we will still be here. Even afterwards, we'll still be here. So retweet it. It doesn't matter. If you want to support the channel, you can either super chat me if you want to support me on Larry Sharpe YouTube, or you can become a member. You can click that join button. $29 per month keeps me doing more and more of this. Either way, please follow these lovely people. Please follow Nikki on Twitter at N Moonitz. And look, you gotta follow Mike. He's got a dog. You have to follow him at SC Mountain Goat. And also please follow Kate, who is, by the way, the favorite, as mentioned, Lady Liberty AUS. Please follow them all if you would. And also all the details are in the show description. Before I go back to comments, get more people commenting, please, I want you guys to tell me what you're doing, what's going on, how people can find you before we go back to comments. Nikki, tell us, how do we find you? What do we got to do? What are you doing?
Just on Twitter. I'm just posting my thoughts while I'm working. So
I love that. Posting thoughts while that's a book. Posting thoughts.
That's what I do all day. I'm working and I'm thinking, and then I think of something in a concise way and I post it.
All right. That's the fourth thing I'm stealing from you. When I write the book, you'll know it was because of this. Posting while I'm working. I like that. Good. Kate, tell us what you're doing. You got a new podcast. Tell us.
Yeah, so I started my own show, Shooting the Breeze with Lady Liberty. It's on YouTube and Spotify. So I just have interesting guests that I've met through the liberty movement. I've done a lot on guns, especially in Australia and with the gun law changes happening here. I've had some libertarian sitting politicians, John Ruddock, who's in New South Wales Parliament for us, but a legalised cannabis MP from WA. Yes, we have a political party called Legalised Cannabis in Australia. So there's an example of a single issue coalition partner that I'm working closely with. And then, yeah, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well, posting my thoughts and my spicy memes and some photos so people know who the hell I am, because I'm a long way away. So
there we go. We're getting there, Kate. We're getting there.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Michael, tell us what you're doing.
Well, Twitter is my job for now. So
there we go.
Yeah, I've become unhireable. I've basically been canceled. So I've been really just trying to be in as many Twitter spaces as possible. I have my podcast, Cali Based. I stream on X and on Rumble and kind of on YouTube, but that'll get canned at any moment.
Any day.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Yes.
Is just trying to be down as many rabbit holes as possible, be up to speed on everything that's going on, and talk about what's happening and try to make people laugh. So that's what I'm doing. You can find me over on X and Rumble.
I like that. So let me go to some super chats here. I got a super chat here. Friedrich says, thank you for the $10, by the way. I was a Dem until a few months ago. Walked away due to their hard left shift on social issues, plus disillusion that more big government solutions, involvement, and overreach can solve every human problem. And I think, again, this goes back to our point. I think that people can be moved, right? One of the things I talk about constantly is people assume that if I say I want less government, that I don't want something done, right? If I don't want government schools, that means I don't want schools. No, I just want more options for schools. I want more options for things. There are community-based issues, right? Roger is a socialist, and him and I agree on the idea that we want localized community solutions, right? They're much better if we could have localized, literally if we could have localized credit unions to start more localized, more banks, more localized businesses. I think we would agree with that completely. And this is a good thing, right?
Well, you talked about moving people, and I don't think it's moving people at all. I think it's making people aware that everything else has moved and they've stayed in the same spot.
Ooh,
and you're not on that
that
team anymore. You've been kicked out of the club. You just don't know it. As soon as you disagree with a leftist, and when I say leftist, I'm talking about the radical hardcore progressives that are not classic liberals. They're not, Democrats from the 90s. I'm talking about Marxist progressives. And that's what the Democratic Party is now, at least in California. The California Democrat supermajority has lost their damn minds. And people don't want to be involved in politics. They don't want to think about this crap all day. It's depressing. It's scary. It's complicated. And they've tuned out, and they don't realize, hey, your whole party has shifted so far in one direction. You're not on that team anymore. You don't know what team you're on, and you don't need to be on a team. That's the thing. So that's the people haven't shifted. It's the parties that have.
Oh, I like that. That's good. I like that. Sonia says, I think that's the problem with most political conversations. We argue. We don't talk. We don't see the perspectives of why people have them. We argue. Larry is good at having conversation with opinionated people without making them feel like they're stupid or wrong. Oh, thank you, Sonia. I love Sonia. I actually met Sonia. She's out of Western New York. Has a lovely, beautiful, very successful young daughter. So amazing. But I do think conversations are important. I mean, I've always say in the liberty movement, I don't need to win arguments. I need to have conversations with people, and eventually they will turn, right? They're not going to turn overnight, but I think they will turn. I don't know. Am I off here, Nikki? You debate online and get people to turn. I'm sure they don't watch one debate and go, Nikki's right. They probably watch 2 or 3 and then go, maybe Nikki's right.
Well,
Am I wrong?
The point is, instead of trying to tell them what's right, is asking them the questions that either they choose not to answer, or when they answer, they're going to realize that the party they're identifying with doesn't support. That's what I try to do, is I post questions, again, like I said earlier, that I wish someone would have asked me a long time ago, because there's questions that there's only, when you answer them, then you see what's really going on. And that's why the left discourages the people they go after the hardest are the people who ask the right questions. They don't
Got it.
want people questioning anything.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yes. So if I grab one more here, Legacy Right says, our world is missing the ability to sit down and have a civil discourse. We need to get back to that where at least we can hear each other out. And I'm going to give credit to somebody who I think really made this better, even though some people don't like him, I know. But I think Joe Rogan did a good job of this, right? Joe Rogan made long form conversation okay. Prior to him, it was an odd thing. Like, it wasn't a normal thing to talk to somebody for 2 or 3 hours. That wasn't a thing. Now people do it constantly. Like, we're able to have real, it's just sound bites, right? You have a real conversation. And most of the people who are bad at what they do will not have a 2-hour conversation, because it's very hard for you to hide what an idiot you are, or what an ideologue you are, or what a shill you are in 2 hours. 3 minutes, anybody can do that. I can lie for 3 minutes, anybody can. But 2 hours, it's a whole lot harder. I think more and more people want what he's talking about, right?
It also
100%.
makes it harder for them to misrepresent the person, which is why they went after Joe Rogan.
Yes,
Right.
You're right. For those of you who happen to watch the debate, if you want to go to my Larry Shop YouTube page, I moderated a panel with RFK Jr., Dr. Michael Rechtenwald, and Mr. Michael Termott, all 3 presidential candidates. And I asked those questions. I was like, what happens? Should we go on legacy media? How does it work? And they mentioned the same thing, being able to chat. Mike Termott talked about, he talked, for an hour with Kim Iverson, right? And how it got, and then RFK Jr. talked about how if he goes to legacy media, they'll chop up and only put out the bad part. So he only wants to go on when it's a live, or he doesn't want to go on. If it's not live, he doesn't want, because they just chop up pieces. And I was like, wow. So it's exactly that's happening. And I think more and more people are feeling that that's really an issue. So yes. Anyway, I do want to grab a couple more of these if I could. Sonia goes on and says, that's why they won't let third parties debate. They ask too many questions that require answers. Yes. But what about this piece? And this is the idea of boycotts, divest, and sanctions. Does it actually work? It's a form of protest. Do those things work? Like the Bud Light protest, or the Starbucks protest now, right? Starbucks is protesting Starbucks, protesting Bud Light. Do those things work? Boycotts, divest, sanctions?
We just had a situation in Australia where we had Australia Day, which is like our national patriotic day, and one of the big supermarkets in the duopoly took off all the Australiana products from the shelf. They said, we're not selling these products anymore. And the backlash from that was, why is a corporation trying to take away our culture? Because Australian, we're very proud of who we are. And that saw people stop shopping there. So it did work, because it got to the point where people, and this was a direction from the government, by the way. Government didn't want to acknowledge that it was Australia Day either. We have a far left government in control at the moment that's pushing all kind of Fabian socialism ideas onto us. And that was the point where people said, hang on a second, we are Australian. This is our day. Yes, there is some contention about whether or not we should celebrate it because of what happened to the Indigenous people when the British settled here, like a terrible history that, is heartbreaking. But at what point do you say, like the 26th of January, which is the day we celebrate, that date has just been chosen randomly. It was not anything to do with what happened. So give us a solution where we can all agree by consensus. Don't do things like stop selling merchandise on our big day and changing culture without actually having the conversation. So boycotting that. Now people are boycotting that supermarket, and their share price has fallen, the sales have fallen, so it does work.
I think this is a good answer. I don't know. Nikki, should we be doing this or no?
Well, I think the free market is one of our strongest weapons. So yeah, don't fund what opposes you. I mean, that's changed the course of history before. That, capitalism conquered racism, not government. I mean, government were the racists, still are actually, but yeah, now I don't know. I would need to know what divest and sanction what they mean by that. But
It
boycotting,
means things. It
sure.
means
I'm
things
gonna-
like, say for example, say for example, you think that, say, South Africa, back when they were apartheid state, as an example, that you want to divest and in anything that is South African. So if there's any kind of investment in South African, you will not invest. You will pull your money out of it. That's what divest is. That's the concepts, right?
I would have
Or
to study that more and to reach my own conclusion on that. But
Okay,
I mean, again, free market, I'm all for. Put your money
gotcha.
where it supports what you support.
Well, Kate, you have some fans. Gary says Kate does a fantastic job helping firearm owners. Look at you. You brought your fans too. Thank you. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Well, guys, is there anything I have missed? Tell me, did I miss anything before we wrap this up? Is there something that we should be talking about or that we should have done?
Just keep going. Keep going with your activism, whether it's big, whether it's small, where it's big, just keep going, even when it feels like the world is against you and you're not making any friends and you're struggling. And I get it as well. Like, I live in basically the California of Australia and they're taking away our guns. I'm actually going to leave this state because I've had enough of living under this kind of. I'm heading east over to Queensland for a little bit and then hopefully to America. That's my plan. Larry, I want to come see you for Freedom Fest in Vegas.
Oh my God, yes. I am going to have you come. You will be coming. I will see you in July in Vegas this year. I will make it happen. Guaranteed. 100%.
And I should
don't go in the Satanic Dome.
Yeah, don't go to the Satanic Dome. That one, don't do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Just the gun range for me, please. I just need to shoot a machine gun. Thank you very much.
Nevada, you'll be fine. We'll make it happen. 100%. I'll see if I get Spike Cohen to come out with you. It'd be awesome.
Yes.
If I can grab him too, it'd be amazing. Absolutely. So, guys, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Everybody else for watching. I appreciate it. I will be back on tomorrow, 1 p.m. WYSL live radio out of Rochester, New York. I will see you all. Oh, but before I say that, I'm sorry. Once this is over, please head back to wherever you are watching this. If you're watching on Twitter, Facebook, whatever you were, head back on after it's over and please put a comment. The Al Gore rhythms like it. So please do that if you can. Head on back, click that after we're done. Go back, click a like, go back, put a comment. People like it. Please do it.